Welcome back to another episode of Jason's Bricks and 5, where we discuss LEGO content in videos of around 5 minutes. Well, today I am excited because, as you may have seen in a haul video, it's been a few weeks, maybe even a month ago, I purchased the new version of the LEGO Disney Castle. Now, I already had the older version, you can see it here, but I didn't get this to build the actual model. I actually got this because when they redid this, I was really quite disappointed. I heard they were coming out with the Disney Castle, and I was excited, thinking it might be Disneyland Paris, something different. But unfortunately, it was just really kind of a reskin of this one. You know, they did different color tones, made a few changes to it. You know, put princesses instead of Mickey Mouse and his friends. But for the most part, it was more or less the same build, and that was disappointing because I already had this, and it's a large set, hard to display. And I really, growing up on the West Coast, I had more affinity towards Disneyland. So it was interesting when this set came out. It's been out, I guess, maybe 2 years now. They actually had the Lego designer at our local Lego store. He had come in, and people were going and buying sets and having them signed. And I debated, and I finally did decide to go, and I got there just towards the end. I didn't actually own the set at that time. I didn't necessarily have something to get signed, but I did want to ask him one question, and I did. So the designer, his name was Ryan Van Werken. It actually sounds, Dutch or, like he's somewhere in Europe. However, he's actually from America. Maybe he has descendants there, but he went to BYU, so he has some local connections. And I asked him, I said, why did they choose to make a reskin of this rather than the Disneyland Castle? And he said he wanted to make Disneyland, but they told him not to. So I, didn't buy it at the time, but then recently I found a model on Rebrickable and I chose to buy it. So we'll move this out of the way. So this is the Disneyland version of the castle. You can see it does look quite a bit different. Now, this is on Rebrickable. The instructions were $20, just so you know. Personally, I think they were a little overpriced, but regardless, this is what we've got. So I do like the model. It actually looks really good. There's a couple of versions out there. The one I chose, I talked to my daughter about some different ones. The one I chose, it uses only parts from the Disney Castle set, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And it was the one that looked better of the two, I guess. There might be more out there, but those are the main two that I saw. I did like it better, even though it was like $10 more. It's by, I think it's TJ Brickwright. Anyways, I'll put a link in the description if you want to look at it. I think the model actually looks really good. It is, if you look at these two, you're going to say, well, it's much shorter. The Disneyland Castle, people that have never been and have been to Disney World a lot, that's the first thing they say. Why is the castle so tiny? At the time, it was a big deal. The trees weren't as big. Now it's maybe not. And at first, I didn't really like the color scheme. However, it does fit with the Disneyland Castle coloring. So I think it's pretty good. So as I mentioned, it used only parts from the set. However, it did not use all the parts. So just so you are aware, if this is something you're interested in, you're going to end up with quite a large collection of parts. I guess I could have looked to see how many parts, but I would guess I have maybe 1,000 parts left over. Now, I could certainly use those in other builds, or, I might consider altering this to, maybe build some sort of back. I don't know, I got to figure that out. Right now, I got to figure out where I'm going to put it. But that is one thing to be aware of. If you buy it, it's going to end up with a lot of pieces left over. The other part about it, I think a lot of the design is very similar to the original. I think the footprint is almost identical, if not exactly the same. Some of the features like the motion that makes them dance in here is the same. So, it's not a total rebuild. It seems like it's a lot of the same things. Like the first bag, I used all the parts from the first bag. And then, when I started on the next step, it didn't. That's one thing about the build, I guess I'll say, is with Rebrickable models, they don't have everything divided up by bags. It's just you use this part. So the first number of steps were all part of bag number 1. There weren't any other bags. As I started to go further into the build, I needed to open more and more. By the end, every bag was open and parts were everywhere, and it was kind of chaos, but we got it worked out. But overall, I would have to say I'm really happy with it. You know, if you are a Disneyland fan and you like it, I think this could be something you would enjoy. You know, I'm not going to tell someone else what they should or shouldn't do, because the model itself is $400. So it's not cheap, you know, even with the extra parts. I bought it when it was double points. So, you know, tried to maximize what I could get out of it. But it is something that I've wanted for a while to have a Disneyland build. So this is what I've got. Yeah, let me know what you think. You know, I'm not going to really talk a lot about the back. I'll quickly show you. It's very similar to how the original model was. It's kind of open back, that dollhouse look. Not my favorite, but I understand why. And they stole some of the features, you know, the little nods to different movies from the other one. And it's very similar, at least as far as the concept to the original one. You know, not necessarily all the little Easter eggs are the same, but it's very similar. So, yeah. Let me know what you think. Do you think that it's a good-looking model? You know, I know a lot of people probably like, I've never been to Disneyland. I don't know. They look the same. I think side by side, you can definitely tell there is a difference. You know, certainly the spires. You know, but I'm happy with it. I like it. And if you're a Disneyland fan, let me know. What do you think? Is this something that you see as a positive or not? You know, I think you're still better off buying the set if you want to build this rather than parting it out, because, you know, you're going to end up paying that secondhand buyer premium to get all the little parts, and you're just better get them all off, you know, the one. The other thing I will say about the build, it does have a couple spots where you use the stickers, but because they're not in, you know, whatever program, like there's a scene, you know, one step where it just says the name of the sticker under it, you know, Snow White, or, you know, whatever. So that's the part that is a little bit tricky, like these printed parts that have on the turrets. It's just a plain 1x3 tile it shows, so you have to kind of figure that out. But, you know, not anything major, but, you know, certainly something just to be aware of. So that's going to do it for my review of the Disneyland Rebrickable model. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Jason's Bricks and 5. Happy building!